Welcome to It's English Podcast, where English feels easy, calm, and natural.
Hello, and welcome back to It's English Podcast. I'm Brian, and if this is your first time here, you are in exactly the right place. We make English feel easier, more natural, and honestly, a lot more fun. So welcome to the family.
And I'm Mary. It's so good to have you here with us today. Whether you are listening on your way to work, relaxing at home, or practicing English before bed, thank you for choosing to spend this time with us. We really do appreciate it.
Before we get into today's topic, I have to ask you something. Mary, do you remember the first time you had to ask an elder something important, like a parent, a grandparent, a teacher, someone you really respected?
Oh, I absolutely remember. I was about 14 years old. I wanted to ask my grandmother if I could go to a birthday party with my friends. And I remember standing outside her room for a full 5 minutes, just rehearsing what I was going to say.
5 minutes, standing outside the door. Okay, that is so real. What was going through your head?
I kept thinking, what if I say it wrong? What if she thinks I'm being rude? What if my tone sounds disrespectful? In the end, I knocked on the door and just said, "Grandma, can I maybe, possibly go?" And she looked at me and said, "Just ask me properly, dear."
Just ask me properly. That is the most real thing I have ever heard. And I think everyone listening right now has had a moment exactly like that. That frozen feeling, that fear of saying the wrong thing to someone you love and respect.
And that is exactly why today's topic is so important and so personal. Today, we are talking about how to politely ask parents and elders in English, not just what words to use, but how to actually feel confident when you say them.
This is a topic that combines two big feelings, respect and confidence. And the beautiful thing we want to show you today is that those two things are not opposites. You can be deeply respectful and deeply confident at the same time. In fact, true politeness is a form of confidence.
So if you have ever felt nervous asking your parents or a teacher or an elder for something in English, whether it is permission, advice, help, or just a favor, this episode is made for you. Let's get started.
All right, so let's talk about the real challenge here. When you're speaking English with someone older than you, a parent, a grandparent, a teacher, a family elder, it can feel very different from speaking with a friend, right, Mary?
Completely different. With a friend, you feel free. You can be casual. You can say, "Hey, can I have some money?" And it's fine. But with an elder, you feel this invisible weight of respect. And when you add a second language on top of that weight, it can feel overwhelming.
Overwhelming is the perfect word. And I want to say this clearly to everyone listening. That feeling is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that you care. You care about that person. You care about the relationship. That is actually beautiful. Today, we're just going to give that caring feeling the right words.
So let's talk about our first tip. And this one is about something that happens even before you open your mouth. Tip 1. Your tone speaks before your words do.
Okay, imagine a song. Before you hear the lyrics, before you understand a single word, you feel the emotion of the music. A slow, gentle melody makes you feel calm and safe. A sharp, loud sound makes you feel tense and alert. Your voice works exactly the same way.
When you speak to a parent or an elder, your tone, the way your voice sounds, tells them how you feel about them before your actual words arrive. A soft, warm tone says, "I respect you." A rushed, flat tone says, "I just want an answer." Even if the words are polite, the tone can undo all of that.
So here's your first practical tool. Before you speak, take one breath, just one, and let your voice be softer than your normal speaking voice. Not quiet, softer. There's a difference. Quiet means the person cannot hear you. Soft means the person feels welcomed by your voice.
I actually learned this from my father. He always said the first sound you make sets the temperature of the whole conversation. If you open cold, the whole exchange stays cold. If you open warm, people open up back to you. And he was absolutely right.
So practice this at home. Say, "Excuse me." Now say it again, but softer, slower. Notice the difference. The second version already feels more respectful, and you haven't even asked anything yet.
Try saying, "Excuse me, I was hoping I could ask you something," instead of, "Hey, can I ask you something?" Rushed flat.
Tip 2. Use the magic of softening words.
Tip 2 is about something very practical, what I call softening words. These are small words and phrases that you add to a request to make it sound gentler, more respectful, and more considerate.
I love this one because these words sound very simple, but they completely change how a sentence feels. Mary, can you break this down for our listeners?
Absolutely. Think of a request without softening words. Give me money. Now add softening words. Could I please have a little money if that's okay? The second version uses could, please, a little, and if that's okay. Those 4 tiny additions completely transform the request. They show that you are asking, not demanding, and they give the other person the feeling that they have a choice.
And here's the thing, giving the other person a feeling of choice is one of the most respectful things you can do. It says, "I am not assuming, I am asking." That is huge, especially with parents and elders who appreciate being treated with dignity.
So here are the most important softening words and phrases for speaking to parents and elders. You can use could I, may I, would it be possible, would you mind, if it's not too much trouble, and when you have a moment. Each of these makes your question feel softer and more respectful. Instead of saying, "Can you help me?" say, "Would you mind helping me if you have a moment?" Instead of saying, "I want to go out tonight," say, "Could I go out this evening if that's okay with you?"
You know what? I used to say things to my mother like, "Mom, I need the car tonight." And she would just look at me with that expression, you know, the one that says, "I didn't hear a question." And then she would wait, and I would say, "Please?" And she would say, "The whole sentence, Brian." So I learned very quickly that it's not just about adding please at the end. The whole sentence has to breathe politeness.
The whole sentence has to breathe politeness. That is a wonderful way to put it. And what Brian's mother was teaching him, without a lesson plan, is exactly what we are teaching today. The structure of the request matters as much as the vocabulary.
Okay, tip 3. This one is my personal favorite because it completely changed how I communicate, not just with elders, but with everyone. It is called starting with acknowledgement.
Tell us more.
So imagine you want to ask your father something. Maybe you want to stay out late, or you need help with money, or you want permission for a trip. Most people just walk in and say the request immediately, but there is a more respectful and more effective way. You start by acknowledging the other person first. You say something that shows you see them, you appreciate them, and that what you are about to ask is not something you take for granted.
So instead of walking in and saying, "Dad, I need money for my textbooks," you might say, "Dad, I know you've been working really hard lately, and I really appreciate everything you do for us. I was hoping, if possible, I could ask for a little help with my textbooks." The request is the same, but the conversation starts in a completely different place.
Exactly. And the beautiful thing is, when an elder feels seen and appreciated before you make a request, they are naturally more open to hearing you. It is not manipulation. It is genuine human connection. You are reminding both of you that this is a relationship, not a transaction.
I remember when I was in university and I needed to ask my parents if I could change my subject. I was very nervous because they had a specific dream for me. And I started by saying, "Mom, Dad, I want to start by saying how grateful I am for everything you've invested in my education. I know it hasn't been easy. I've been thinking a lot about this, and I'd really love to share something with you, and I hope we can talk about it together. And something shifted in the room. My mother put down what she was doing. My father turned toward me. They were already listening, really listening, before I even said what I wanted.
That gave me chills. And I think everyone listening knows that feeling, when you say something and you can actually see the person you love open up to you. That is the power of acknowledgement. And in English, there are specific phrases that do this beautifully. Acknowledgement openers. I know you're very busy, but... Acknowledgement openers. I really appreciate how much you do for us, and... Acknowledgement openers. I understand this might not be the best time, however... Acknowledgement openers. I've been thinking about this carefully and I wanted to ask you respectfully.
Tip 4 is one that many people never consider, and it can make the biggest difference of all. The when and where of your request matters as much as the how.
Oh, this is so true. I once asked my father for permission to go on a 3-day school trip about 15 seconds after he walked through the door from a very long workday. I watched him put down his bag, loosen his tie, and I just launched into, "Dad, there's this trip and I really need to go and it's only 3 days and he just held up one hand and said, "Not now, Brian." And that was the end of that conversation.
And the request itself wasn't unreasonable. The timing was just completely wrong. When someone has just come home from work, or is in the middle of cooking, or is clearly tired or stressed, that is not the moment to make a request, especially an important one. A person who is tired or distracted cannot give you their full attention, and they're much more likely to say no simply because saying no takes less energy than saying yes and engaging.
So, how do you choose the right moment? Look for the calm. Look for when the elder you want to speak to seems relaxed, settled, and not rushing anywhere. After a meal is often a good time. During a quiet evening, at a moment when they have already mentioned something pleasant. You can even ask permission to have the conversation, and that itself shows enormous respect.
Phrases like these work beautifully for setting up the right moment. Saying, "When you have a free moment, I'd love to talk with you about something," gives the other person the power to choose the time. It says, "This is important to me, but you matter more than the urgency I feel." That is a deeply respectful message. Setting up the moment. "When you have a free moment, I'd love to talk with you about something." Setting up the moment. "I've been wanting to ask you something. Is this a good time, or would you prefer later?" Setting up the moment. "I've been wanting to ask you something. Is this a good time, or would you prefer later?"
And here's the key thing to remember. You are not being weak by waiting for the right moment. You are being wise. Wise people choose their timing carefully. That is not fear. That is strategy. And it shows the other person that you respect their energy and their space.
Our fifth and final tip is one that takes real maturity to practice, but when you do, it transforms every conversation you have with an elder. It is this: always give the person you're asking a graceful way to say no.
This is such a powerful idea. Explain it, Mary.
Think of it like this. When you make a request without any flexibility, you put the other person in a corner. They must say yes or they must say no and feel like the reason the conversation failed. But when you build a graceful exit into your request, you're saying, "I trust your judgment. I'm asking, not demanding. Whatever you decide, I will respect."
I remember asking my grandmother if she could lend me her old sewing kit for a school project, and I said, "Grandma, I was wondering if I could borrow your sewing kit for a few days, but only if you don't need it. Please don't worry if it's inconvenient." And she said, and I will never forget this, she said, "You are such a polite young man." She lent me the sewing kit, but what mattered more was that she looked at me with genuine warmth, and that feeling came from the graceful exit I gave her.
That story is so beautiful, Brian, and it shows exactly what we mean. The graceful exit is not about being uncertain or lacking confidence. It's about trusting the relationship enough to leave room for an honest answer, whichever answer that turns out to be.
Building in a graceful exit. but only if it's possible for you. Please don't feel any pressure. Building in a graceful exit, and I completely understand if the answer is no. Building in a graceful exit. No worries at all if this isn't the right time. Building in a graceful exit, but I leave it entirely in your hands. Okay, let's quickly bring all 5 tips together before we move on. Tip 1, let your tone speak respect before your words arrive. Tip 2, use softening words to make requests feel gentle and considerate. Tip 3, start with acknowledgement before you make your ask. Tip 4, choose the right moment and setting. And tip 5, always give the other person a graceful way to say no. These 5 tools together, this is the architecture of a truly respectful, confident request in English.
And remember, using these tools doesn't make you weak or overly formal. It makes you emotionally intelligent. And emotional intelligence is one of the most valuable skills you can develop in any language. Politeness is not about hiding who you are. It is about showing the best version of who you are, someone who respects others enough to choose their words with care.
Okay, it's time for one of my absolute favorite parts of the show, the vocabulary breakdown. Today, we're going to explore 10 essential words one by one. Mary will explain each word, and I'll help guide you on how to use it naturally. Mary, let's begin. The first word is permission.
Permission means when someone allows you to do something. You ask for permission when you want to do something, but you need the agreement of another person first.
This is especially important when speaking to teachers, parents, or elders.
For example, could I have your permission to leave class early today?
The second word is request.
A request is when you politely ask someone for something or ask them to do something. A request is softer and more respectful than a demand.
So it sounds kind, not forceful.
For example, I would like to make a small request. Could you please turn the music down a little?
The third word is respectful.
Respectful means showing that you care about someone and treat them with dignity and kindness. When you are respectful, you think about how the other person feels.
Very important when speaking to elders.
For example, she was very respectful when she asked her grandfather for advice.
The fourth word is tone.
Tone is the feeling or emotion in your voice. Your tone tells people how you feel, even before they understand your words.
So it's not just what you say, but how you say it.
For example, he spoke in a very gentle tone when he asked his mother for help.
The fifth word is acknowledge.
To acknowledge means to show that you see, hear, or appreciate someone or something. When you acknowledge a person, you let them know they matter.
That creates respect before asking for anything.
For example, before asking for a favor, she acknowledged how hard her father had been working.
The sixth word is considerate.
Considerate means thinking carefully about how your words or actions affect other people. A considerate person tries to not be a burden.
That's a powerful habit.
For example, it was very considerate of him to ask if his mother was free before making his request.
The seventh word is elder.
An elder is a person who is older than you and is respected because of their age and experience. Parents, grandparents, and teachers are all elders.
And the way we speak to elders really matters.
For example, in many cultures, it is important to speak to your elders with great politeness and care.
The eighth word is formal.
Formal language or behavior is more serious and official. Formal English is used in situations that require extra respect or professionalism.
Like emails to teachers.
For example, when writing to a teacher, it is better to use formal language such as, "I would be grateful if."
The ninth word is graceful.
Graceful means doing something in a smooth and kind way that does not cause embarrassment. A graceful response makes everyone feel comfortable.
Even when saying no.
For example, she gave her grandfather a graceful way to say no by adding, "but only if you're comfortable with it."
The 10th word is phrase.
A phrase is a small group of words used together that have a specific meaning. In English, certain phrases are especially useful for making polite requests.
These phrases make your English sound natural.
For example, learning the right phrases like "would you mind" and "I was wondering if" can make your English sound much more natural.
Simple words, powerful impact. Use them well.
Try using each of these words in a real sentence from your own life today. That's how vocabulary truly becomes yours.
And that, my friends, brings us to the end of today's episode. What a conversation we have had. We talked about fear and respect and confidence and the beautiful truth that you can have all three at the same time. And we gave you 5 real practical tools that you can start using today, not in a textbook, not in a classroom, but in real life with the real people you love.
I want to say something to everyone who listened all the way to the end. The fact that you care enough to learn how to speak politely to the people in your life, that says so much about who you are. Language is one of the greatest gifts we give to each other. When you choose to use it with care, you are choosing to love people through your words. That is not a small thing.
That's beautifully said, Mary. Okay, before we go, we have a very special listener question to share with you. This one came in from one of our community members, and it is so good. Listener question. I really want to ask my mother for permission to spend a weekend away with my university friends, but I am nervous she will say no without listening. How do I ask her in English in a way that she will really hear me?
What a beautiful question. And first, thank you for asking it, because I know it took courage just to write that down. Here is my honest answer. You cannot control whether she says yes, but you can absolutely control whether she feels heard and respected during the conversation. Start by choosing a calm, comfortable moment, not when she is tired or cooking. Sit down together, open with acknowledgement. Mom, I know you always think about my safety, and I love you for that. Then make your request softly. I was hoping, if it's okay with you, that I might spend a weekend with my university friends. I've thought about it carefully, and I really wanted to ask for your blessing, and then give her the graceful exit. But I completely understand if you have concerns, and I'd love to hear them.
And here's the most important thing. Be prepared to really listen to her answer. If she says no, ask her to help you understand why, not with frustration, but with genuine curiosity. Could you help me understand what worries you? That question, said softly and sincerely, opens a real conversation, and real conversations are where trust grows.
You have more tools now than you did at the start of this episode. Use them. Not to manipulate, not to get what you want at any cost, but to build deeper, more honest, more beautiful connections with the people who matter most to you. That is what polite English is really for.
We want to hear from you now. Tell us in the comments, what is one situation where you want to practice polite English with a parent or elder? Share it with us. Our community is full of learners just like you, and your story might help someone else take their first brave step.
If today's episode helped you, subscribe to It's English Podcast so you never miss an episode. Leave us a rating or a review because it truly helps us reach more learners who need this. Share this episode with a friend who is learning English. And come back next week because we have another episode that is going to change the way you think about speaking English.
I'm Brian. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring enough to learn. And remember, every time you choose your words with care, you are becoming a better version of yourself. Keep going. We are so proud of you.
And I'm Mary. Take care of yourself this week. Be kind to yourself as you learn. And remember, the most important conversation you will ever have is the one where you speak from your heart. We'll see you next time.
See you in the next one.